Now we shall go into the crypt. If he starts playing again, I shall laugh because I can't resist listening to a bit of organ playing. It's lovely. This is the Crypt Museum. Got a bell. Carillon 1900. Oh, look, how fascinating. It's a carillon style. I've rung one of those, haven't I, at Stone Memorial Church, the tab. I suppose that's where you get up into the bell tower like that, up there. Alas. Off we go. Some pretty amazing stuff, I must admit, what you're going to see. It doesn't just take us back to the Saxon era of this church when it was founded, but to the Roman. It's all right. Just pause to read anything you want to read because it's quite busy here. Look. Roman gravestone. Roman Tombstone, of which it says a cast was found in the Moorgate area of the city during excavations in 1911. The original is now in the British Museum. In the 19th century, Popular awareness of the city's Roman history grew as more evidence came to light. Some discoveries were accidental during the building projects of London. The London Underground Rail networks was begun in 1863, and medieval sewers were largely replaced with Victorian period building boom. And several were the results of planned excavations along the line of the old wall. The Latin inscription reads, "To Marcus Aurelius Eucarpus, most devoted son, aged 15 years and 6 months, set up by his mother." This one here, Roman gravestone. Among the items found at the excavations of the Roman wall that took place on Tower Hill in 1852, the tombstone of which this is a cast. The demolition of several properties on the Tower Hill in the 1840s brought to light the surviving section of the Roman wall. However, plans to remove it for further building were opposed by a growing number of those more interested in the preservation. In the 1850s, local building projects were obliged to make proper excavations as the sturdiness of the wall was actually proving its removal difficult. I suppose I can see it properly now. Much of the material uncovered was reused elsewhere, but several lettered tombstones were sent to the British Museum. The original with this piece among them, the Latin inscription reads, "Aurelius Alphidius Ulussa, of the Pomptine tribe, native of Aetania. He lived 70 years. His heirs erected this in accordance with his will. He lies here." You can actually walk on Roman tiles there, which is quite rare in London. Roman gravestone. This piece is a cast of the tombstone found in 1787 in Goodman's Fields, an area in Aldgate. This area lies just outside the Roman city wall and was part of the large stretch of the Roman cemeteries right along its length. Romans never buried their dead within any settlements, instead using the land outside and along approaching roads. In London, maps of the late 18th century, there is still open and used as tentagrams, although by the mid-19th century it had been built over. The Latin inscription reads, "In memory of Flavius Agricola, soldier of the 6th Legion, the Victorious. He lived 42 years and 10 days. Albia Faustina set this up to her incomparable husband." All Hallows Bark in London, though. Century documents. Both these documents from the 18th century record improvements, donations to the church. Clear there for a moment. I'll read you this out. This is the way we came. Roman floors. This section of terracotta tesserae comprises the floor of the Roman dwelling built on this site at the end of the 2nd century AD. By this time, the city of Londinium had grown into the largest in Britain, with a population of around 60,000 people. Not only were there warehouses and storage buildings by the busy river walls, but also houses and shops for local workers and their families. Today, this is one of the most perfectly preserved tessellated sections of pavement in the city of London. The house would not have been overly grand, probably a plain and solid home, with the floor laid straight onto the earth. Only more prosperous families had the money for hypercausts, the underfloor heating. And the fuel to feed the furnaces regularly. As subsidence caused the floor to become uneven over time, the larger dips were filled with opus signium to even them up. This was a building material made of old tiles broken up into very small pieces, mixed with mortar, then beaten down in place. A large section can be seen running across the tiles of the floor on the left. It is also worth remembering that this would have been a general ground level at the time, so it's how much London has built up over the years that back in Roman times this would have been ground level. This paved floor was discovered in the late 1920s. Subsidence under the tower of the church led to an exploratory shaft being sunk to investigate possible causes. It was an exciting discovery with a great deal of evidence of the Roman occupation. This site being uncovered, much of this can be seen in cases of the Crypt Museum behind you. Also behind you is a flooring section of a larger floor tiles, as well as other sections of some tessellated floor. On discovery, the pieces were loose, but at the same level at the main section. They have been relayed at a lower level to allow better access to the rest of the crypt. The steps down to the lower level by the brig are comprised of medieval Purbeck marble memorial slabs. They are not original to All Hallows, but were probably salvaged from other churches in the area. It is possible to make out the slight indentations in one of the brass figures that would have been attached. Yeah, look. That's what they're on about, but I don't know if it is or not. Let me go on. These are the ones, look. That would have been a cross, wouldn't it? So that's what it is. Some kind of resurrection scene. It could have been a road screen. Part of one anyway. Now there's a lot here, so I will slowly scroll you down and you can just pause to read or go back and have a look if there's anything that takes your interest. Roman oil lamps, look. Other things on this side. Londinium, Roman London.
So that must have been the ground floor or something of the Roman house. Yeah, because you've got ground floors. You see? That looks like the place in Morocco. The strips.
The Romans were the first to put a bridge over London Bridge, and that is their London Bridge.
And that as well, it's all original.
Very interesting. The Eaps Cross. St Dunstan's church plate. All Hallows has All Hallows also houses the church plates from St Dunstan's in the east. Once a neighbouring parish joined with All Hallows. That's one of the destroyed churches that was bombed in the war. Only its tower survives. Its ruined shell and its church plate here. Fascinating. Travelling conveniences. Do pause to read any of the descriptions. I mean, I do read some things out, but this obviously is a lot, so.
And then Roman gates, Roman Wall. You know where? Do you know that part of the Roman Wall? Yeah. And this is a beautiful street in the city when you get to there. You cross now. Yeah. arches and yeah.
Greenery. It's probably about that much left, probably.
This is the All Hallows church plate. Look, All Hallows Barking. See, I love that reference because, as I say, this was founded by Barking Abbey. This was their London residence, and when the Vikings attacked Barking Abbey in the 900s, this is where the nuns fled to, their London estate. Now we move into something very interesting, some documentation and the Knollys Rose ceremony. Pause to read if you want to. Parish registry shows an entry describing the Knollys Rose ceremony in 1982. The gift of the Northcote Foundation, 1985. Reverend Philip Thomas Bayard Clayton, Tubby. I do suggest you pause and read these because there's some really interesting stories with some very brave and courageous men. There he is, the man himself. Join me for the next part, ladies and gents. Welcome back. Part 2. Beating the bounds. ones. Oh, that's one of the ceremonies I've spoken about before. All those parish boundary markers that we see all have died around. Years ago, the parishioners would have had to walk around with sticks beating the boundaries of their parish so they knew exactly where and what their parish was. It was done with young children as well. They were breached into it by being hit with sticks, so they remembered things, and then being given some cake and ale afterwards. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of the bits have moved and you can't see it very well. So. Beating the bounds, look. (1986). Here we are, beating the bounds. This is what it's all about. Still goes on today. They don't hit kids with sticks anymore, though. I used to hope not. Thanksgiving for the life and work of Frank Toomey, 1912 to 1983. William Laud, Archbishop of Canterbury. Archbishop William Laud, born 1573, became Archbishop of Canterbury in 1633, having been King Charles I's principal ecclesiastical advisor. He was executed, you see. His body was brought to All Hallows after his execution and interred in the east end of the crypt. A bronze medal with a plaque may be seen at the pillar of the Vicars Vault. To your left, after the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, his remains were exhumed and reinterred in St John's College, Oxford, in accordance with his wishes, laid out in his last will. Of course, to read that because it's interesting. And at the top of the page, All Hallows Church Register, may be seen the entry of Archbishop Laud's death. The actual page is the register displaying William Penn's baptism. Originally, the word traitor was appended to the entry, later scratched out. William Laud. Burials Anno Domini 1644 to 45. You got William Laud, Archbishop of Canterbury, beheaded, and you can just see the traitor bit at the end, and they have scratched it out. That's very interesting. The new Navy office stood on a site between Seething Lane and Trinity Square, and the location fell partly within All Hallows Parish. Visiting consular officials were often accredited to the Navy office whilst residing in London. Amongst them was John Quincy Adams, who was here representing the government of the USA. He spent many years as a young man travelling Europe with diplomatic work, as he had been educated in Germany and was fluent in numerous languages. On one trip to London, whilst his own father, John Adams, was serving as US USA's second president, he met and married Louise Catherine Johnson on the 26th of July 1797. Louisa was a local resident, the daughter of a well-established merchant with a number of American connections. She had met John Quincy Adams years earlier when the family was resident in Nantes, in France, a clever, well-read and eloquent woman. She was also an accomplished musician. The marriage challenged her in numerous ways as she accompanied John Quincy on many of his diplomatic missions, often heavily pregnant or travelling separately through war-torn areas with small children to join him. In 1825, John Quincy was made 6th President of the USA, and Louisa became the only non-American First Lady, a distinction she maintained for almost 200 years until the inauguration of President Trump on January 20th, 2017. Here's their marriage entry. Just there, John Quincy Adams. And Louise Catherine Johnson of this parish. Look, that's interesting. North America he was of. What history has begun in this place? Baptismal Register, Admiral Sir William Penn was Commissioner of the Navy Office, and we know quite a deal about him through the diaries of his next-door neighbour and work colleague Samuel Pepys. It had been Penn's actions that saved All Hallows from the Great Fire of London. In order to halt the passage of the fire before the Navy Office and the church were all destroyed, he ordered several buildings around to be blown up, creating a firebreak. His son, also William, was baptised in All Hallows on the 23rd of October 1644, and it was this child who grew up to be an early champion of democracy and religious freedom, and to found the state of Pennsylvania in the USA. Now the thing has moved, so we need to find him. October sets, there we are. William, son of William and Margaret, his wife. Son of William Penn and Margaret, his wife. Of the Tower Liberty, they were. So William. Fascinating. And we go on to more fascinating objects. I love things like this because this links, I've got American blood from my great-grandfather, and this links our two nations. The Hickson Memorial. It's one of the memorials that was destroyed. As I say, do pause to read any of the long descriptions if you wish. That shows you what the memorial was like. Photograph and illustration from the Survey of London, 1934. So yeah, I mean, the damage done to this church by the Second World War was phenomenal. It really was bad. And look, the Great Barking Abbey itself. We've seen that image in the Church of St Margaret's in Barking, haven't we? Because this church was, as I've said several times, founded by Barking Abbey. Oh, the ceramic poppies, I remember these when they filled the tower moat with them. That was an amazing thing to go and see. Medieval key was found during the excavation of the crypt area in the 20th century. Medieval glazed floor tiles. These tiles are from the medieval floor of All Hallows Church. The majority of these tiles are lost over time as the church underwent several refurbishment, extensions and improvements over the centuries. These tiles show two of the daisy ring design and two of the grape design, assorted single tiles from 4 tile designs. All are in the Westminster style. Remember the wartime connections. This is a model of the top floor of the original Talbot house in Popperingy in Belgium. It was constructed by Herbert H. Kaywood, who also constructed a similar one now in the collection of the Imperial War Museum. The room was originally the loft used for hot drying of a large house owned by a wealthy brewer, Monsieur Cavoet Camalink. When the frontline fighting had approached near to the town, he had removed his family to safer lodgings and let the house to the Neville Talbot and Tubby Clayton in order to set up a soldiers' friendly house that became intentionally famous, Talbot House, known by the radio signallers code as TOC H. The upper floor, the upper room, as it was known, was furnished as a chapel with the soldiers themselves working to provide an altar made from carpenter's bench found in the garden shed, candlesticks for the altar made from bedposts, and a donated portable organ, known as the groan box, used for musical accompaniment. Wooden benches were made or acquired from damaged churches, and the altar cloth was also donated. From the early days of its creation, the chapel in the upper room offered a peaceful haven for the hundreds of soldiers taking a brief respite from the trenches. The original upper room in the Popperingy remains open today as part of the Talbot House Museum and Guest House. Now, isn't that amazing? And poignant. You look at that man there. We go on with our tour. Pictures. Pause to read their descriptions, as I say. If you want to, that is. Interior views. All Hallows 1892, this shows it before its damage and destruction. Well, not destruction because it was rebuilt, but yeah, it was destroyed in a way. Shows it before. coffin of a baby, look. Stone. Medieval or Norman. £1,705, a water cistern. Oh, how perfect. It's perfect, everything down to the last detail. I know, I'm smiling, it's not wind. The City of London. You can really feel the rumbling of them trains as they go underneath. It's the great hoist, look for the font. The piece of worked stone seen here. They're all practicing for their concerts on Sunday. We will be going to a Christmas Carol concert. I don't think we're going to be able to record it visually, and I wouldn't want to because there's going to be children there singing. But if I can record it audibly, if audibly is a real word, I'll do so. Linda would have loved this. The carols, that is. And we're all alone. Shackleton's crow's nest is back, as we've seen. Some kind of memorial on the wall there. This is known as the Vicars Vault because the remains of so many of the previous vicars are here. Sir Follett Holt, first chairman of the Tower Hill Improvement Trust. By hammer and handle arts do stand. Do you know, I've done so much filming over the last 2 days that my ribs actually feel like they've been beaten. No, genuinely, they really do feel like they've been beaten. I know I over-exaggerate sometimes, but all done for my own enjoyment and of course for others' enjoyment as well, because I get part of the enjoyment of this page, the kick out I get out of it is when you ladies and gents really enjoy a location, get talking about it, get into the history of it. And this, as was proven before when I covered it, I won't scroll in on any of the names because that's not very seemly. It's quite recent, some of those, but the altar at the back there is very old. Try and remain a bit, well, not try, but should remain respectful as you can with something like this. Most of the London crypts have been cleared out now, so you can get a good gist of the architecture of a lot of them. Arms box, oh, we saw some of these in St Mary Abchurch, horse box. In an age before the welfare state, a lot of people relied on that. Same as the bread cupboards we saw in St Magnus the Martyr, Grave Memorial. Sorry. Grave Memorial, formerly the church upstairs, dislodged from the east wall of the North Hall during the bomb damage in 1940. James Graves was a clerk to the Navy Office. In 1695, following the prohibition or the practice whereby clerks acted as agents for the receipt of seamen's wages, a salary of £50 was made available to Harcourt masters to prepare petitions from seamen for the board's consideration. The salary was discontinued in August 1698, but revived in the following November. At the same time, a salary of £30 was made available to James Graves to assist masters Graves was appointed sole petition clerk at the salary of £50 following Master's resignation in 1708. And as King Henry I would have said, by the bones of Lucca, I hope there's a privy in this place. I'm going to need it by the time I've finished. And these are World War I grave crosses that were brought home, obviously, when these men were given proper stones. Do pause to read. Did it all over again in the Second World War. God bless their hearts. Talk and Tubby and everything that we've learned about that. We'll be going further on in a minute. So I think there probably may be a part 3 as well. I'm sorry, but there's a lot to cover, isn't there? Century byzantine where this stone is, what you're going to have a look at. Pause to read the description, it's interesting. If you like reading the descriptions, I know some do. Look at the detail on that. Now join me for the next part, ladies and gents. Welcome back to part 3, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a long one, this one, but there's so much to cover. Roman to Saxon, medieval to Norman, and right up to the current day, which we are hearing this place of worship still being actively used, what it should be used for. I don't often say things like this, so you won't catch me in a sentimental mood very often, but days like today do prove that life can be beautiful. And some Christmas advice from London Luke. If happiness shows up at your table, ensure that it has got an extremely comfortable seat. And that was discovered when they turned this into a museum and chapel area, because it was an active crypt, don't forget, with bodies in it, when they turned that this was discovered. So this would have been hidden away for many, many years from the Reformation. Obviously the Reformation men didn't come down here. That was originally one of the bone chutes through which the bones would be poured when charnelling was done. If you watch St Mary Abchurch and the crypt, you'll know all about charnelling. You don't have to be religious to get caught up in the atmosphere of a place like this. The Cairo symbol of Christ, before images of Christ were allowed. I've spoken about that one before. Interesting through there. Talk. Where talk meetings are still held today. And when the wartime damage happened, the fire was so hot that the lead and metal melted down and ran down into here, into this crypt. Lovely stained glass window there, look. Just here, St Clair Chapel. The Time Mill Chapel was actually a burial vault of the 17th century. There is certain evidence to suggest that it was that of John Kettlewell, a devout and learned man who was one of the significant group of clergy who refused to swear oath of allegiance to King William of Orange and Mary Stuart in 1688, known as the non-jurors. Samuel Pepys was a non-juror. He was also close friends to George Hicks, Vicar of All Hallows from 1680 until he resigned the living over the same issue in 1686. Kettlewell, devotional writer and vicar of the parish of Coswell, Warwickshire, died in 1695 and was buried here at his own wish. However, although Ket was undoubtedly buried somewhere here at All Hallows, other evidence says that he was buried in the same tomb as had been Archbishop Laud's. William Laud is known to have been buried under the high altar in what is known as the Vicars Vault for 18 years. That's where we've just come from, prior to his removal to St John's College in Oxfordshire in 1663. Whoever occupied this vault, it was lost for several hundred years until the evacuations of the lower level of All Hallows in the 1920s. Excavations, sorry, not evacuations. All Hallows in the 1920s. It was rediscovered, cleared out and opened up as a chapel to St Clair in 1927. The small stained glass window in the left-hand wall dates from this time. In 1957, it was dedicated to the use of the Tock H Women's Association, whose lamp stands on the niche at the east end of the chapel. It is linked by a squint narrow window to the neighbouring chapel of St Francis. The two glazed terracotta relief panels, sometimes known as majolica, are in the style of Renaissance sculptor Luca della Robbia. They depict two scenes from the life of Christ: the Annunciation to the Virgin Mary by the angel Gabriel, that she was to be the mother of God's Son, on the left-hand wall, and the Nativity at the birth of baby Jesus on the right-hand wall, which is perfect for Christmas. The misshapen piece of lead on the south wall, the chapel was left as a reminder of the destruction. Read this for yourselves because I want to listen to the music. Equipment and things is in here, so dear friends, the tour ends here. You may stay with me and listen for this if you want to, or this can end your tour. Hope you've all enjoyed, and if you do stay and listen to the music with me, I hope you're all going to enjoy. I know.